for inviting us here in your home. And we'd just like to ask you a few questions about your experiences in the West Indies and also your experiences here in Britain. And the first question I'd like to ask you is, where were you born? Where were you born in the West Indies? Could you give me a little bit of insight in that?
I was born in the parish of Hanover, in a village called Claremont, 1,000 feet above sea level, very high. I was born in the year 1924, in the month of February. This month is my birth month.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And living in Jamaica, could you tell me of your who sort of had an influence over you while you were growing up? Who were some of your mentors?
When I was a child, my grandfather was one of them. He was a very religious man, a man of good morals. I lift my hat to my granddad for more than one thing. He used to take us at nights around the old mahogany table for family prayer and Bible reading. And he sees to it that we go to church every Sunday and we say our prayers at nights before we go off to bed.
So you came from a very religious background?
Yes, very much so.
What about your grandmother?
My grandmother was the same, and my mother, and my dad, all of them.
They were the same, like all the way through?
Yes, because we're coming from a traditional Methodist background.
Yeah. And when did you decide yourself that you wanted to be a preacher?
From I was going to school, I said 2 professions I would pursue: a teacher in a school or a minister of religion.
Yeah. Why did you take the second choice of being a preacher? Just because of your religious background?
Yes. And somehow the Lord called me into this thing. And here I'm doing preaching and teaching now.
Both at
the same time.
Yes, it's good. Were you brought up by your mother and father, or was it an extended family venture? Were you brought up by your grandparents as well?
No, I was brought up by my mother and my father, but we in Jamaica we live near each other, like so. There are times when I'm with my grandmom and times when I'm with my mother. I'm the first grandchild, so my grandparents love me dearly.
Yes, and the first son.
First son.
Yeah. What sort of discipline did you have from each?
Oh, you're talking about Victorian discipline in those days. Not firm, but strict.
Very strict.
Very strict.
Elaborate.
Strict in a way that you do as you are told. And you couldn't talk back to your parents because that's rude, no manners, and not only them would rebuke you, but the neighbors would as well.
Yes.
Very good. And they set good examples for us. I'm not saying that it was 100% all right, because nobody's perfect, but they did their very best. You can see the product today, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. And what about influences your boyhood? What sort of things did you like doing as a child? Can you recall anything?
I was a lover of reading. I liked to read. That was my greatest hobby those days, to read. Because I'm always on the quest, I want to know more. And I also ask a lot of questions to older people.
Did you find that they were knowledgeable?
Yes.
To what extent?
Because they reveal things to us that I did not know. They spoke to me in the Jamaican dialect.
Patois.
Yeah. But the older I get and more educated, I translate, so to speak, into standard English. Get the understanding of what they were talking about.
Yes. And how did you feel about their the older generation in your day? How was their command of medicines and healing people and so forth?
Well, it's a tradition that comes from Africa, where my grandmother would go to the fields and pick different weeds and leaves of trees. They have leaves to boil that is good for your chest, your heart, your eyes, and you name it, they could find it out in the fields there. I forgot some of them now.
Yes. Can you remember any of them that they used to use? I remember Sarasi.
Sarasi is one of the great ones. And we have another one that we call, that is for cough, if you have a cough. Susumba. Susumba, the leaves of the susumba. You juice it, mix it with a pinch of salt and a little sugar, mix it up and drink it. It gets the cold off the chest.
Yeah. But where do you think all this medicine and so forth originated from? Was it just something they developed? Where?
No, they brought it with them when they left Africa. See, you cannot give a true picture of the Caribbean without going back to Africa, the roots.
True. Have you heard of Mary St. Paul?
Yes. She was the one that worked with Florence Nightingale.
Yes.
The sad thing about it, her name is not mentioned in literatures. We heard all about Nightingale because when I was a schoolboy, that's we have to study the life and history of this great Florence Nightingale, not knowing that Mary Seacole played an excellent part in the nursing profession.
Have you got any siblings, brothers and sisters?
No, I haven't. I'm the only child.
Gosh. So were you spoiled?
No, not with that mother. My mother, no, you don't spoil for her. She's a one-word woman. She spoke to you, look and let that, and off you get to do what you're doing. But she was a loving woman.
Yes, that's grand. What about your working experiences in Jamaica? What could you tell me of your, before you became a minister? What were your other jobs? What did you used to do?
Well, Jamaica is agricultural country, especially in the villages. So we do farming in the days, yam plantation, banana plantation, sugar plantation, we work there.
Yeah.
And then at nights we go around the different villages and we preach.
So you had 2 jobs?
2 jobs. Hard, but it pays off anyhow.
Yes. How about did you have a formal education in Jamaica? Did you have formal education?
Yeah. At first we had our elementary training, and then we go up to an 8th grade in what they call now an all-age school. From that now you further education, what we call the second step up. And from there now, out of that group who take their exams, you get boys and girls from there go off to teachers training college and different places.
Were you one of those?
No. I went away to United States 1944, and there I started to do my studies in the ministry.
Okay. So you did have like a higher education.
Yes.
There. What was that like?
In Jamaica?
No, in the United States.
Well, I took my ministerial training course from a college called Lee College in Tennessee. You see, I couldn't get to be a resident student there because those were the days when the blacks out, you keep out the blacks. So I took it by correspondence. I did all my lessons, send them back to the college, they grade them, and send them back to me here.
Yes. What about, could you compare your education in the West Indies or the higher education that you receive in the United States to what you've done here?
No, the education system in the United States is higher than Jamaica. You see, and here as well. I like it here. Once you are trained in this country, this Britain here, you get a thorough training. There's no country to beat this one here. That's how I see it. Very thorough.
Yeah, yeah. So you find that I know you've had formal education, you've gone to higher education, but what do you say for the other West Indian ordinary people that came to this country? What did you think this country had to offer in the way of education for them?
First to begin, back home to go high up in the education system those days, you have to pay your way. And that set back a lot of Jamaicans. It's not that they didn't have the potential and the ability to climb the ladder, but they didn't have the money. Here, you don't have to do that. You get a good education. It's only when you're going off to university, then you'll have to find money to help you along. So there's more opportunity here to climb the ladder of education than what you have back home.
Yes. So
I don't know what it's like now,
but I mean, in the view of, I'm not leading you on, but in the view of, at that time in the 60s, how easy was it for black people to have formal education here?
it wasn't so easy, No, not at all. I remember some years ago, there were some schools even in this town here. Once your child go to that school, it's like a dump. They used to take our children around to different factories and show them, which is good. But at the other hand, they encourage them to take jobs there. Because my children came home to me and tell me the same thing. And I said, no, let me slave in the factory for you. I'm your father. You won't be going there. Sky's the limit for this family. If you can climb the ladder, go up there. I'll stand by you. And so I did. See them there?
Yeah, I can see by looking on your walls that, there's a lot of graduates in your family. And the next question I was going to ask is how important was education for you, for your children? And as you answered it already, that it was very important. And why did you think it was important for them to be educated in such a way?
I'm going back home now. My mother was a very ambitious woman. She told me that she didn't get much of an education because she was the eldest in the family. She had to stop at home to look after her younger brothers and sisters while her parents go to the plantation. But she vowed that if ever she have any children, she's going to see to it that they get good education. 1931, I was a schoolboy. My mother sat me down one October month on a bench in the house. And she said to me, you see that school over there? It's on the hill. You'll have to go there. She said, I will see to it that you know more than me. And so she did. And when I left Jamaica and came here, every letter my mother wrote me, remember what I've done for you. See to it that your children go to school and get educated. Every letter. May our soul rest in peace.
Yes, wonderful. And that This is another question I was going to lead on to. How easy was it for women in the West Indies to be educated? You know, as you were saying about your mother, that it wasn't very easy, but in some cases I've heard that it was easier for men.
Yeah.
For women to be educated than men, because men have to go to the fields. Did you find that in your experience?
There again, yes and no. Because if the man gone to the field, the woman is at home looking after her children. There's scarcely any time to do anything more. And in the villages, you don't have night schools. You don't have correspondence courses neither those days. So it wasn't so easy for the women.
What about women in the town? What about women in the towns?
Well, they have a better chance those days. Then because they have everything right at their doorstep, so to speak.
Yes. Yes. I was speaking and interviewing someone recently, and he argued that women were far more likely to be educated, as I said to you before, you know, than the men were. And even when they came to this country, they were more likely to be accepted a bit better, or maybe could get onto education, as we see nurses and social workers today of the older generation. Did you find that it was more possible for women to get into education, for black women to get into education than the black men?
The women are quick thinkers. I think you'll bear me out with that. They are quick thinkers. And I lift my hats to the women of this country, the Jamaican women. They were the first group to break through that barrier and push themselves forward into further education. The first step they made was to go into the nursing profession. Sad to say, the men didn't make any move those days. And until now, some of the men still lagging behind.
Yes. I mean, some of the women that came to this country, we understand, were like from ordinary backgrounds, but a lot of the women, even my mother, did some sort of formal training in the West Indies. They came here and it were not accepted.
Yeah.
How did you find that for both, really, for men and women?
Well, let's talk about the women first. You see, there is a prejudice. Now we get our training and teaching and language from this country. We are trained out there. All the textbook come from here, there. And yet when we came here, they would not accept it. They think that our education is inferior to what they have here. So some of our girls have to go back again and re-educate themselves in order to get where they are.
So what of the women who couldn't really bring up a family and couldn't afford to go back into education?
Well, they just land up as ordinary housewives.
Or factory workers.
Factory workers.
Yes. Really, the next question is, how do you see that reflecting on the black community today? You know, especially in Wolverhampton.
Yeah. Well, you see, we need role models, our mentors in our society. And if we, the older ones, don't set that example, there's nothing the younger ones have to look to. And because some of the young ones come and find their fathers and their mothers don't move from down there to anywhere else, they adopt the same custom and principle, and it's get too bad. It's too bad. It does nothing good to our community. The black community do need, like any other community, something or someone to lift them up.
Like the Americans, I know that as a child I look at people like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, different black heroes in my estimation, so I can have a mentor, something to aspire to. Mary C. Cole, for instance. do you think that the black children in our schools know anything of their black culture or of the people that have aspired to great things? Do you think they're learning anything about it in the schools today, or what do you think that can be done about it so that our black children know more about these?
You see, what you are doing today will help. They'll help because, let me use this as a figure of speech. There's a good person next door, and you pass that door every day and don't know that the good that you are searching for is just next door to you. Not until you knock the doors and go inside and you find out that what you're searching for is right there. What I want to bring out is that there are people in the black community that are good examples, but our children don't know if what you are doing here get into the schools and the colleges, then the people, the youngsters of Wolverhampton will know that right in their very town, there are people there that they can mold their lives off.
And what do you think as a black community that could be done outside of school that could actually help to make this possible?
Well, we have centers. We could establish centers where people come in, and we as black leaders should be in a position where we can pass on our experiences, our knowledge of things, our roots, where we are coming from, onto them, that they can be proud of it.
Yeah, I heard earlier on you talk about your roots and that you're from Ghana, and also the name of your tribe, and the name of your family. How accessible are these things to our black community? How could they venture out in looking for these things? Because there's a saying, you have to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. How could, because you found yours, what advice could you give to anyone?
I think you'd have to go and research for those things. The best way to get, like my roots, if we contact the embassy of Ghana, we would get a lot of advice from them. Once you mention where you're coming from, they'll tell you whether you're from Kumasi, Takoradi, or Accra, those places.
Yes, and so that would sort of help.
Yeah.
A lot of people to know
their roots.
Their roots. How did you find? How easy was it for you to have accommodation when you came from the West Indies in this country? How easy was it to find appropriate accommodation for you and your family?
It was not easy. It was a battle on our hands. When I came here, the first night I came up to Wolverhampton, I had a few friends up at a place called Langley Road in Maryhill here. I went there. I thought they could put me up, but after they gave me a light meal, the manager came around and said, well, he can eat, but he can't sleep here. Just imagine, I'm a total stranger. So the men took me to another place and I got put up the night. And so we wouldn't have done that to an English person if he comes to Jamaica. We would leave our bed to give him. Well, that's...
Yeah, and that's another question. How was the English treated in Jamaica in those days? Because my mother, told me quite a few things, but let me hear it from you. How were they treated? And how did you see them?
We saw them as God with a common G-O-D. We saw them as somebody that is perfect, very, very superior, no evil in them, nothing that would cause you to be sorry. They're perfect. For that reason, a lot of people believe that, well, all right, I would like to have a white man's mind. For the white man wouldn't pinch anything from you. He wouldn't tell a lie on you, and all those kind of things, the poor thing. When I wrote that from I was back home, I know they are human beings and subject to failures like anybody. But I thought we would have been treated much better when we came here first. They told us that we are subjects of this country, and this is the mother country. Well, I mean, every child look to mother, isn't it? Even if she can't give you food, she give you a good word. Never mind, my son, sit here. But when we came, it was a different thing. They called us, to help to rebuild the country after the war. We sacrificed and we came here and thought we would have had a good reception, but we didn't get it that way. We have to beseech and beg and do everything to get places to stop. There were places when you go and you knock the door and they look on you, no room for you. They don't want no blacks and they don't want no Irish. Those days, I don't know why. Because the Irish are white people, so I don't know why. But however, I didn't moan a lot. I stood my ground and I said, I'm going to stay put and I'm going to work hard and send down my roots and let the indigenous population know that I have stamina in me. I can excel if I want to. So I pick up courage and start to do my thing.
Yes. As you talk about stamina, did you feel that women were behind you in actually, moving forward and actually sticking to what they believe in going forward?
Yes, let me say this. In this whole wide world of humanity, no man can excel and reach up to any height unless you have a woman by you. I wouldn't even say behind you, but by you. You don't need your women folk. Do you know a man is not complete without a woman?
Oh, I know that. I know that.
You need a woman.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. So you think that through the struggles that
they stood by us.
Yeah. And how difficult was it in those days, especially in the 60s, to actually, to feed your family, really, to live a comfortable life with your family?
Oh, Grace. We worked the clock round 12 hours for £9. 60 hours a week to keep a family here and to send back home, because our tradition that we look after our grandparents, our parents, aunties and uncles. It's no burden to us. That's our custom. We share with one another.
Yeah, but it was difficult.
Very, very much so.
Yes. And how did your wife had to work also?
Yes, she worked too.
Yeah. That's good. Well, comparing the West Indies and comparing England and the West Indies, did you think that you've made a worthy sacrifice?
To come here?
Yes.
Yes.
Elaborate.
Because first to beginning, the education for my children is much easier than when we were back home.
For instance, do you think that things might have changed if you had stayed in the West Indies? Could you have helped to develop the country, so therefore your children, it would have been easy for your children to be educated? Or did you think at the time that you had to go?
You see, money and ambition work together. With all the good intentions you have, you need money as the means to get you there. And that was very, very slow back home.
Yes. And did you have this 5-year plan also, like everyone else?
Oh, I had less. 3 years. I said I would stop 3 years here, then go back to Jamaica. But I found out that in the second year, couldn't do it. So I sent for my wife. Because my vow was to keep the pledge with my wife as long as I live. And being a young man, I said, well, I might.
You might be tempted.
Of course, you have to we live in a real world, you know.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So in your second year here, you found out that the 3-year plan wouldn't work.
No.
Yeah. And so when your wife came, did you started another family?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how, as I can see that you're a very educated man, very well read. What of your congregation? How do they use you at this present time? How do you get to share the wealth of your knowledge?
Oh, they work me from morning till night. I'm all over the place.
I mean, what are you? Are you a counselor? Do you counsel also in your
Grace, I'm everything. Yeah. I counsel, I teach, I preach, everything.
Yeah. And do you find that a lot of the problems that your generation had, do you find that this generation is having the same problems in the way of race relations?
Yes. Doesn't matter what you do, you'll find it. You see, because legislations does not change a man's heart. Legislation is an external thing. Prejudice is in man's heart. It's only God can take it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes these prejudices are wrapped up in parcels. Figure of speech, wrapped up in parcels. You got to open it to find out that it's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're saying it still exists, but it's hidden.
It is hidden, that's right.
But it's still there.
And you must always keep in mind that no matter what people say, you're black.
Yes. Yeah. Going back, because I'm taking you here and I'm taking you to Jamaica, and I'm just seeing how quick you are. Your smells. What are the kind of smells that that you remember back home? What are the things that bring to mind happiness, peace, tranquility? What are the type of smells you can remember that brings that type of memory?
Oh, there's a place where I used to live in the valley. It's a pleasure to walk down there in the mornings because Jamaica has so many flowers, wild flowers and flowering trees, and the fragrance from and the next thing I used to like again is fresh coffee when it's grounded and like this, and other things too.
Yeah, that brings back memories.
Memories.
Yeah. Anything that you smell here that give you like a flashback memory?
No. Yes. In summertime, when the apple blossom at the back there reminds me of back home.
Yes. What about images? What sort of images can you, what I mean image in the 60s when you were there? How were like Jamaican, their dress sense? What were they like as people? Because I know that sometimes there are people who like to look smart.
Oh yes.
Like yourself. What was that? Where did you emulate that sort of way of thinking and dressing being?
As you say that we were poor people, but we like to dress well. It's a pleasure to see the children going off to schools in the mornings, or mom dressed them, and Sunday schools, and those who go to church on Saturday, Sabbath school, well dressed with lovely, brilliant colors. We are people that like a lot of colors around there. And in my day, the older women, the mothers of the village, they never seem to wear like hats like what you have. They tie the head. Yes. Yes, right. And they dress down here and the sleeves here. And those pictures come back to my mind, the old days. I remember my mother, my grandmother, and all of them. And the love and the care they show to you. And Christmas time, and Easter time, and whenever we have a function, everybody would rally around you.
Yeah. The next thing I was going to ask you about the dates, special dates you remember in Jamaica, celebrations. What is them?
No, Easter is a great month because we used to go around and grandma and granddad give us buns, Easter buns.
That's right.
So I delight those days.
Yes.
Christmas time again, lots to eat. Like the roasting pigs, the curry goats, and so on. August again, the first day of August, usually a holiday.
Anything celebrated?
Yes. That was the day in the year 1838 when Queen Victoria gave the slaves the freedom. Yes. Emancipation Day we call that. 1838. So it is a big celebration. Cooking, eating, drinking, and dancing.
Yes. What are some of the dances? What type of dance?
They used to dance where you hold a ring.
Quadrille?
And you loop, yes, and you loop in and out, and they do the jig too sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Talking about celebration and dates, you've given me a very important day, the emancipation of slavery. What about any earlier dates, like in the 60s? Any important dates then?
Well, there was another date, because I'm talking about long time now, the 24th of May. That was the Queen Victoria's birthday. They call it Empire Day. But the Jamaicans change it now and call it Labor Day, where they go around and plant trees and different things.
Yes. What about the Independence Day?
Well, it happened while I was here. That is the 6th of August, 1962.
Yes. And how important did you see that for Jamaica? Do you think things got worse, or do you think it got better?
I think it was best for them, because they have more room to breathe now. When you're under somebody, you're into what a claustrophobic situation. However, the country has lost its grip somehow there, and some areas of the infrastructure of the country. And it's caused because of these loans repayment. As soon as they accumulate any money to plow back in their country, they have to pay the big people them for the loans. And so they are living in an atmosphere of strangulation. They're strangling them. I do hope that things will be better.
Apparently, recently, the government did say that they were going to scrap all the debts.
Yes.
But Jamaica wasn't one of them. How do you think it would be for the West Indies or West Indian Islands? How do you anticipate how we're going to improve if that is the case?
We can't manage on our own out there owing such enormous amount of money to them. We can't. So if they want to help us, they'll have to cancel these debts that we owe. And not only Jamaica, but other places too.
That's right. Yes.
They should be ashamed of themselves when I tell you that. America is so rich. The West Indies is so tiny, so small. Are you telling me that they can't help them? Jamaicans and other Caribbean people shouldn't be going to the United States to look for work. They could establish industries in those islands and keep the people there.
Do you think later on maybe you could see this happening because having the poor countries around maybe would cause more problems for the West?
Of course it will. When a man is hungry, he can be very desperate. And when you're desperate, you don't know what you'll do. They don't see anything yet, and people take even the ordinary canoe to cross.
Yes. So, thinking of Wolverhampton and the West Indies as life really improved for the ordinary people. I know you've got a good life, but significantly, do you think they would have been better off staying in the West Indies or?
Yes, if they have the means, money goes afar in life. What's the use to stay there, have a brilliant sunshine every day and have nothing to eat? So you're better off travel to the northern climate where it's cold and frosty, but at the same time you can eat good and wear good and sleep good.
Yeah. So it was well.
Yes, it was.